So it took about a year, but I did, after New Year's, get those on the gate there. So now, even though the gate doesn't work because somebody drove a car through there and then drove off with witnesses that let it happen while I had a broken leg, and I chased out after them. About a year later, today's April 30th, 2024. Tomorrow is Labor Day, International Workers' Day, May Day. Check out this tree. So, May Day. And what does labor mean when nobody seems to want to do the right thing unless they get paid for it or they get threatened to do it? Those trash bags right there. And then the recycling back there, that's plastic. I was able to get from this out here. And then whenever I'm out here, conveniently, right, somebody will show up and be like, hey, let me borrow your machete. Instead of emptying out the trash cans, they want to interrupt from this side of the sidewalk over that way. I've been able to keep most of the trash out, but down there, it's full of trash. Okay, so I'll go up here. Try not to step in any dog shit, right? So that, they're against that. More importantly, not just Labor Day tomorrow, it is 16 years past global peak oil. And most motherfuckers don't fucking care. Most motherfuckers don't know what it means. Most motherfuckers are satisfied with the levies. You see that right there? I don't call that a good job. I don't call that a prune job. I don't call that anything good. But most motherfuckers, speak of the fucking devil over there, and our fucking family, satisfied. Oh, look at that. There they go. Huh, she didn't honk at me. Forgive the videography. It's not the usual thing. I try to keep my face in the recording unless I'm sitting down still. So you saw that tree over there. And look at this. You see that? What the fuck is that? You see that? Look at that. What the fuck is this? What the fuck? You see this? See, look at that. So, this mentality of selfish self-interest. I'm gonna walk by here, see if I can get some garbage in there. Because I've cleaned up before, right? I've come down here before, run around with one of the stray dogs and helped with the gill tape. at that. So, year 16 after peak oil. Tomorrow's Labor Day, International Workers' Day. And what is your work worth when somebody has to threaten you economic hardship or reward you like you're a stupid baby, give you a candy, pay you to do the right thing? What's your work worth if you wouldn't do it just because the work is necessary, because somebody needs to have it done? Whether you get paid or not, it's worth what it is worth. Instead, you have people who cost more than they're worth, taking up all the positions in society. They say they're hardworking, and yet things look like shit when they're in charge. And when I try to do anything that actually benefits us, it's not seen that way. This, for example, it's mallow, right? Not valued. Mulching, green mulches, no-till, not valued. Why? Because no money, no candy, no toys. And they grow up, and they never grow up. They grow old and stupid and set in their old fucking ways. I had my trash can stolen. Probably a little bit in my tone there. My trash can stolen. I've already had my leg broken here, right over there, right back there, cleaning up trash. Does that mean they're gonna clean up the trash for me? No. And these borders and these fucking levies, they give people the illusion that what they have is normal. You see all these people driving cars around like it's not post-peak oil. Why? Because there's levies in place. Make them think there's plenty to go around, or what they have they deserve. If the levies weren't in place, they'd have to face the consequences instead of somebody else somewhere else, because of whether it's climate or... Oh, look at that. You see that right there? That's a fucking tick. Look at the size of that fucking tick, dude. Look at that. It reminds me of my neighbor. And the fucking fat bitch that just drove by. Not to be body shaming, but she... Well... Sometimes the cliches of gluttony have very fitting manifestations. And all the other vices too, right? But people think because here's kind of, like it's nothing. 16 years past global peak oil. How's there enough gas to keep this many cars on the road? Because there's levies in place to make it seem like there's nothing wrong, to make it seem like there's plenty of energy, there's plenty of oil, there's plenty to go around, and it's not going to cost them anything. Millions of people dying somewhere else in the world. I don't have to worry about it as long as it's not me. Every string pulled after 2008 has an effect somewhere else, and they don't feel like they have to deal with it because it doesn't affect them immediately. And what can you do? They make you think you need to organize, you need to politically organize, you need to get a group together, you need to have friends, and if you don't have somebody on your side, you're nothing. So that's one of the things that gets emphasized May Day, Labor Day, right? That workers' units, yes, respectable, okay, but just because you don't have a group doesn't mean you can't do anything. Do something. Don't be immobilized by being outnumbered by people doing the wrong fucking thing. Just because nobody else is showing any fucking initiative doesn't mean you can't show initiative. I could probably measure in molar mass if we wanted to get down into the chemistry how much carbon I've sequestered. Well, that's that. And that doesn't matter to them, right? That doesn't matter to them. The tons of carbon that could be sequestered if a community just this size, just on this street, you got a dozen houses on each side, if they all engaged in very simple, very easy changes to their daily routines, something like carpooling, it doesn't even. But no, where's the public rail? Where's the high-speed rail between here and the peninsula, the edge of the peninsula? Where's the high-speed rail for the rest of the country, or for the U.S. even? No. As long as the consequences are somewhere else, this day can look normal to them, and it looks like bombs are falling for a completely other reason somewhere else, and nobody feels responsible, nobody feels blame. They'll keep playing their little election games. The US is due for another presidential election soon. We've got another election here in Mexico. And what? Presidential candidate Jill Stein just got arrested at a demonstration on one of the university campuses in the US. Do you see any of the Democrat or Republican nominees for presidency over there out in the demonstrations? No, she's Green Party though. Do you see any politicians here organizing? Literally, there's 10 different water trucks that come by selling, embracing capitalism. As if capitalism here in this country doesn't have to do with the imperialism in the US and how they've literally staged coups, overthrown governments in Latin America just to establish a route for capitalism. Buenas tardes. Mayo 1, mañana, Día del Trabajador. So that's the hypocrisy. And then when something does happen here, they won't have years of status quo to blame. No, it happened because the politicians, you chose the wrong party. You voted wrong market policies. They never blame this because there's no bombs dropping. Nobody's pointing any guns at anybody. Not immediately here. And they don't see that keeping all these cars running, they don't see that their mode of agriculture, they don't see the subservience to American imperialism to keep a status quo. Climate change isn't even a big deal. Climate change is not a big deal. It could be resolved if enough people. But what are most of the protests about? Trying to convince the government to sanction the oil corporations, the major industries, right? But where do the major industries get their business from? Military-industrial complex of the U.S. is one of the big contributors, right? And then you've got the petrol. And you've got 100 companies. But where do they get their money from? From consumerists. From people buying things. From people who think it's just another day. So that's my little bit for today. And you saw one comparison right there. That mesquite tree versus the mesquite tree over there. This one I've pruned, I've cut back. And that one I haven't touched one branch on. Just because it's not paid, just because somebody doesn't threaten you, doesn't mean it's not worth anything. But tomorrow isn't going to emphasize work. Not for a lot of people. Tomorrow isn't going to be emphasizing what's necessary to do, what's important to do. Tomorrow is just another day. No industry shutdown, no beginning of degrowth economics policy, circular economic, or austerity measures. None of that, no. As long as the lights stay on, the water keeps flowing, the streets keep bustling, they're not going to change shit. Unless you threaten them or you give them a treat. If you don't threaten them and give them a treat, they're not going to do what they need to do. You tell them that they need to do what's right, and they're going to tell you, you're not my boss, you're not my mom, you don't tell me what to do, I do what I want. Like a big baby. Tell them, at least, tell them. Don't let your cats out, don't let your dogs out. Keep them indoors, or give them a patio, give them a run outside. Don't let them outdoors unsupervised. Don't let them defecate outside. Don't let them destabilize the ecosystem, eat the birds, the lizards, the frogs. Nope. Nope, they're not. Why? Because you gotta put a gun to their heads. Because you gotta give them a treat, or else, what's it worth? What's it worth to me? What do I get out of it? Ugh. Look at that. It's full of blood, too. Yummy. So, that's what that stands for right behind me. And I spoke yesterday with some military from the National Guard. And it's nice to walk past the tree walking without crutches. They saw that right there. But the impression this one gives internationally is that you don't respect authority, and that's bullshit. No, that's not what that's about. That's not what that's about. It's that you believe in not needing to be threatened, not being fundamentally incapable of understanding what the right thing to do is. The responsible, the ethical, the correct, the proper, or the beneficial thing to do. And that you don't need to be treated like you're inferior to people who presume to know what's right for you. And that's why I can't impose. And what does it give my neighbors the impression of? That I'm willing to clean up their garbage because I'm inferior. They have no humility, but what am I gonna do? Threaten them? Threaten them. Give them rewards for doing something that they should do without needing to be persuaded. And they're going to keep thinking. They're going to keep thinking that they have themselves someone to clean up their garbage, and they don't have to clean up their garbage. Like they never grew up. Like mommy and daddy continued to clean up their garbage for them. Like nobody is telling them what to do, and they don't need to do it. And it's as benign as picking up garbage, recycling, or remediating. We could have a myco-remediation operation here. Not very high tech. Literally just getting the right strains to recycle the plastic down into its carbon. Turn it into compost. We don't. But they don't think they're responsible for the bombs dropping somewhere else. They don't think they're responsible for however many thousands getting displaced from their houses over in Sudan, where they get their electronics from. Electronics like the one I'm holding right now. They don't think that they have to be reminded or held accountable. They want to be comfortable. They want to feel, look at that. Car driving by, selling their stuff. How many companies? There's no union there. There's no collective, which is what they do, and I respect that a lot. So the military saw that yesterday, and I hope they understood it. I was very respectful with them. I spoke with them in person over by the tree over there. And I explained to them why I have to empty the trash cans. They asked me if that's what I do for a living, and I told them, no, I don't do it for a living. I need to do it because if I don't, they're going to eventually burn the garbage. Plus it gets all dirty and on the soil, and it contaminates the soil and the plants, and then in turn it contaminates us. And I told them it's because they believe that we aren't even connected, that they're distinct things. The land is just something that you impose on, that you plop your presence on. It's disconnected from, and the consequences never have to hit you back. No. So that's how that goes. I think that's bullshit. I don't own a car. It's been several years I don't own a car. I don't want to own a car. I don't want to have to own a car. And a lot of these people, they think it's threatening for the World Economic Forum and, you know, the elites to decide for us that we need to have these like 15-minute cities and these plans imposed on us, that we need to watch our individual carbon footprint, and that it's a conspiracy to believe in the carbon footprint of an individual because it's propaganda by the oil industry and the lobbyists and the corporations. In a way, they're right. It is being weaponized as a way of deflecting blame, but those corporations are dependent on the consumer. What does consumption look like? This is what consumption looks like. Everybody having their peaceful, ordinary, everyday status quo lives, not changing a single thing they put on their plate, not cutting anything out that they don't need to have there. And the future can't afford that. The future, literally, by the most optimistic measures, will not be able to sustain this many people alive on the planet. It is impossible. It is thermodynamically impossible to sustain this type of growth. There are not resources for it. Forget the space. If we could find the space, there isn't resources, there isn't energy for it. And they think, just keep doing this, you know. Economic growth is a good thing. Overpopulation is a myth. Carrying capacity is irrelevant. The way that you use the land, the way that you get your food, the type of food that you eat is not important. Everybody gets their own car. Everybody gets their own electronics. There's no blood. Right now, look at this thing I'm holding. They might as well be dripping blood. It might as well be dripping blood. Little Congolese kids mining the minerals. The amount of people shot at or displaced, all the suffering to get the lithium, which is, it's probably gonna get worse. And what do these people think is good? They cheer when the president here currently, the president Obrador, he talks about building a Tesla factory here in the north to mine the lithium. You see all those cars that just got recalled from shitty engineering, from capitalists? Literally every single Tesla truck just got recalled. They should have worked out the bugs on that thing, don't you think? But greed, cut up into smaller pieces. Everybody gets a piece. We should feel more connected. We should have different iterations of all this technology. The internal combustion engine is a great thing. It's amazing. It's awesome. It is highly inefficient, but it's really, really well cut out for the job. Really effective. Produces a lot of torque. Diesel engines are the backbone of industry. You know, and most of my generation and younger think that fossil fuels are the devil. They don't realize how much of an essential component they are to a circular economy or a carbon neutral economy, or to the future of a hydrogen economy. They want easy, they want quick, they want no accountability, they want nuclear and windmills and lithium mines, and they don't care about the consequences somewhere else, because that is not their fault. It is, though. It's their fucking fault. It's our fucking fault. Year 16 after peak. Year 16 AP. But as long as you base it on something else, you deflect the attention. You can keep living your normal life. Keep stealing the guy who cleans up your garbage. Keep stealing his trash can. Keep smashing his door. Keep throwing rocks at him, right? Because you aspire to be something that you have already seen an example of nearby. Nepotism, friends, corruption, tradition, maybe a few generations old. Ignore the ones that are older than that. Ignore how many empires, how many civilizations have collapsed. Ignore how many have had to resort to cannibalism, literally cannibalism. There's even in the North American Southwest a history that they had to resort to grinding up the seeds from the pitaya, which is what, it's like dragon fruit. Yeah, but the other cactuses produce it. It's like prickly pear. It's a cactus fruit, basically. Grinding up the seeds to make a flour after you've sifted them out of the feces. Do you think they did that because they wanted to? They did that because their options were cannibalism or sifting through their feces for a calorie. Does it look like these people these days have any respect for the facts? There's an edible that they want killed, that I've pruned around, tried to keep alive. There's another one. Most of these, the mallow and everything back there that I've tried to keep alive, that's edible. Does burning garbage like that, like over there, does that look like you're concerned about not having enough? Does that look like you're humble? That doesn't look like you're humble. That looks like you're greedy and selfish, narrow-minded, self-interested, entitled. Calling this, oh, that's dirty. Cut it down. Burn it. Burn it. As if we don't need the calories in the soil, as if we don't need the long chain humus, the carbon in the soil, as if we don't need the organic matter helping to remediate things like the heavy metals they've put in the soil for years, or the dioxins from the garbage burning. No. So, this is my longish rant, maybe half an hour. This is an entitlement. That's a walkway right there, right? It's not wheelchair access, but there's a certain entitlement to block, to obstruct footpath. And there's a difference what sort of things these behaviors build up for and generate. That tick is one example. Bombs getting dropped on innocent kids is another example. Genocide is another example. There's not a direct, visible, tangible proof of it, but that doesn't mean it isn't absolutely empirically connected. That doesn't mean there's no causative connection. That doesn't mean it's not their fault, our fault. And again, you can't be crippled, immobilized by feeling like you're going to be ineffective. There is enough capacity in every individual to do something right, even if you think it's insignificant or minuscule. You do not need to wait for some messiah to come, some political messiah that you can vote for, when you can directly do something. You don't need to wait to organize a labor union to work on something that's worth it. You don't need to wait to get paid or wait to get threatened to do something right. You don't need to wait until they're dragging your neighbors out because they're anarchists or communists or Jewish or whatever to do something right. And sometimes even just not joining the crowd is the best thing you could do in the moment. And I firmly believe that people are not too stupid to be able to make the right decisions when allowed to. And that they don't need to be threatened and they don't need to be bribed to do the correct thing. I really do. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean it applies to everyone all the time, in all circumstances. And I've had to pay for having that ideology, I guess. So, I don't like seeing how low the standards are for getting by in the status quo. How unwilling to make even the slightest change most people are. Oh, look at that. So, this went on longer than I thought. If it was short enough, I'd post it on TikTok, because I haven't posted anything on TikTok, but it's gonna have to be YouTube. the other side of the fence right there. You remember how that happened? I do. I don't put that up because I think there's a whole army behind me. I put that up because I believe in what they're doing. I don't have the permission to speak on their behalf. And by putting that up there, if I make myself look bad by responding as they would like me to respond right now, and I know they'd love it, I make them look a little bad too. Something they don't gotta worry about because they're arrogant, immature, selfish, entitled. So as long as they keep up those appearances of... The whole construction went up immediately after we put our fence up. Immediately after I got that fence up, they got a whole other story, a whole other floor. What a coincidence, huh? What a strange coincidence. And then rocks started falling out of the sky from the angle of the balcony. Oh my God, what a coincidence. Huh. And the consequences are, yeah. Well, that neighbor next door to me on the other side isn't gonna tell on them, right? And the neighbor next door to them isn't gonna tell on them. And the one next door to them, the one that saw who drove the car through my gate, isn't gonna tell on them, right? And their little capitalist wannabe labor isn't gonna tell on them, right? Status quo. Don't worry, it stays between us. Nobody's gonna break your leg over it. Nobody's gonna lock you up over it. Nobody's gonna deprive you of your human rights over it. At least I'm not. I wouldn't want to contribute to that because it costs me something irreparable. Something that they don't have to measure their worth by. But I do. I wish that was payment enough. It sucks. It makes you bitter almost, you know? There's no reward in doing what's right. I don't believe in a heaven or the punishment of a hell. So, you know, people like them would believe, oh, well, that means you could just be immoral. That means you could just have no compass. No, that's what you don't get, and you might never mature to realize the point of actually doing the right thing for the right reasons. And it sucks, and I'm gonna live like this for as long as I can live like this. I wish it was longer, but it doesn't look like that's the trend. It doesn't look like that's what's in the works. And even if it was, it doesn't really matter because by my most realistic, pragmatic optimism, I wouldn't be able to get more than a few more decades instead of what the actual empirical science is established. And they'd have enough generations after this one. I think they're already like on third one right next door. To just take advantage of the medicine. Keep leaving me their empty beer cans. Damage their organs. clog their arteries. Yay, capitalism. Mayday. Go. Check it out.
Directamente de Tortillería, Villa Unión. Sí, señora Malgasa, que no se le pase. El carro con las tortillas que viene directamente de Tortillería, Villa Unión. Hasta las puertas de su hogar les traemos las tortillas bien calientitas a 23 pesos el kilo. 23 pesos el kilo de tortillas de maíz puro 100%. También le traemos masa normal, masa especial para tamales y el nixtamal precocido para esposones. ¡Ah! Y sin faltar, los crujientes chicharrones. Sí, crujientes chicharrones aquí en este carro de sonido que viene directamente de Tortillería Villa Unión.
You too can have your little slice of capitalistic entitlement. Then it's still his trash cans. Look at that. My hairline ain't what it used to be, huh? Getting older. The red hairs I had turned white, it looks like, and that's almost permanent. One of them went back to red, but getting older. They'll just add another generation onto the entitled list. I wish there was something better. I wish. This is all we can do. This is all I can do. You can only direct yourself. You can only control yourself. Can't tell somebody else to wipe their own ass and demand them to wipe their own ass without being prepared for them to not listen. Flicking cigarette butts out of moving cars. Lovely. Lovely. What do I think realistically is going to happen? I think those measures will pass. I think there's going to be protests. And if they don't pass, people will suffer because they needed to be passed. They needed to be adopted. And instead of embracing those changes, and trying to own them, people are going to let it get too late and waste time, waste energy in the meantime, bickering over their freedoms. You have a freedom right now to choose to do the right thing. It might be too late soon. And either you're not going to be around, or you're going to be suffering because the austerity that needs to be. And even in the best, this could be a discussion. There's so many points that I'm too used to having embraced already. Most people don't even hold themselves up to. And it's not like you're gonna reach a pinnacle of perfection. No, that's the fucking thing, dude. You gotta keep trying. You gotta keep maintaining your standards. You gotta keep making an effort. It's not, well, I already paid off my whatever. I made it in life. You don't make it in this. The most you can do is center yourself, declare your intentions, and try to always check yourself before somebody else checks you. be willing to be corrected, to be willing to do better and learn how to do better, even if you're not the source of the advice, the source of the correction. You have to be willing. You have to have that intention. And that intention, we look around, clearly outnumbered. Clearly. And it's no coincidence the military showed up yesterday. I know they're in town because the drug traffickers and shit, but when I'm out there, they'll send somebody. They'll do something. They'll get in my way somehow. Oh, let me help you. Let me help you. Let me see your machete. Dude, did you see all that trash? You don't need to cut down the plants to clean up the trash. If you can't crawl, don't pretend to run. If you can't ride a bike, don't try to ride a motorcycle. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but compared to them, I do know more about plants. This motherfucker over here, he knows how to follow instructions. I'm pretty sure the father, at least, he's worked in gardening over in the US, and it is seriously embarrassing how little he actually knows about plants. There's you expect that the person, you know, like how a restaurant chef or a head cook, because they know more hands-on and practice, they should have more knowledge, right, than somebody who's learned culinary arts in a fancy school and all they know about food is in the books and they don't have any practice in the kitchen. Well, this motherfucker over here in the fucking kitchen hasn't learned shit. And they've been interfering over there. They actually, the one right over here next door on the other side, told me they're the ones responsible for planting that invasive fucking species. What kind of idiot has earned their living carrying that type of shit in their head as acceptable? Well, maybe the same type of idiot that raises somebody to jump over the wall drunk as shit and have no shame about it, right? Like, if what you did is right, then let's tell the whole world about it. If what you did is right, why don't you tell them why? You should have good reasons, right? You should be able to justify it. Everybody should believe you. Everybody will do the same investigation that you did and find out that you were completely justified. Unless you're wrong, right? Unless you need to keep things between you and your friends, because then you can't outside when I'm outside my front door. Yeah. So pruning season's coming up for some of those trees in the park. The acacias, once they've done flowering, which is just about now actually, this month and the next month, May, June, acacias need to be pruned. It is also a good time to prune mesquite, but this bitch next door always tries to threaten, say, oh no, you're gonna get in trouble with the policeman. Dude, it's like the proper thing to do with the fucking trees. It prevents things like what this tree had. This tree got a bad fucking case of termites, right? And it was already grown when I got here, so I couldn't prevent them from taking hold in the first place. But I've been trying to keep them at bay, trying to keep them off. And look at that tick. That tick didn't come from in here. I got tick repellent species. That plant right there. The scent from that. I've got mint over there. I've got rosemary there. These plants are supposed to help repel ticks. That doesn't mean they're 100% effective. They don't even have to be 50%, effective. If there's 100 ticks outside, one of them is gonna get through. But I make an effort. What do? They want everything paved over. They want everything killed. They think it's sterilized so that they could flick their cigarette butts on the ground, so that they could leave their beer cans. They want to kill the plants. How retarded do you have to fucking be? Sorry, I know that's not politically correct, but I don't necessarily just mean it in a way of like referring to a cognitive impairment or a learning disability. To retard, right? Retard is slow or set back. That's the root of the word, so. Regressive. I should be careful though, because I have family too, although I'm not particularly close to. Those terms can be used as slurs or derogatory and towards people who, well, they're not like this shit next door. Oh, great. You hear that? Why do I have cats? Why do I have cats? Because I wanted to have cats? No, because there's an invasive species jumping over the fence, getting into life-threatening injuries that I need to take to the vet, and these motherfuckers just kept pushing it. I don't know how many fucking cats they've thrown in here. Because it's morally correct? Because it's ethically right? Because it's legal? No, because the people back home in the States don't bring me a fucking gun to point at them the way they've pointed a fake airsoft gun at my head. Because I can't drag them out of their house and kick them in the head in the street. Because I can't curb stomp their fucking teeth out. Because that would be wrong. You see? Why would the good guy exact justice? No, the good guy needs to tolerate it. What a cliche. How easy for us to carry on day by day. Standards we don't have to live by. Burdens we don't have to carry. Fear we don't need to carry and have. Warnings we don't need to teach our kids. Nope. So, it's great, huh? When I compost, let me show you what happens. Okay? When I mulch or compost, check this out. All right, so I removed the dry rot affected parts of this lime tree, and I'll be digging it up soon. But what do you got there? Right there. You see that? That's a neem tree. Neem. It's not invasive here, but what do you got there? Compost. That's a citrus, isn't it? Right in there. There's some citrus trees coming up there. You got cantaloupe coming up there. What do you get when they have their way? I have recorded multiple times what you get when they have their fucking way, when they have control and dominion over things. Tapeworm, ticks, fleas, ringworm, and then, the usual industrial motor oil, car parts, plastic, dioxins, and all the other inorganic shit, right? Heavy metals from the motor oil. That. They'd rather see that. They'd rather have control, steal the guy's trash can so that they could see more of that than, oh, hey, look. I didn't even plant that. That came up in my compost. It's a tree. It's an edible fruit tree. It's a healthy, probably an orange or a mandarin, and then there's less probability. It's like 20% probability. It's a lime, a Mexican lime. Maybe like a 5. It's a Meyer lemon, but they'd rather see that shit. They'd rather see ticks and tapeworm and fleas, diseases, because this is symbiosis, okay? Listen, this is how the symbiosis works. The tapeworm, not only does it break off in segments, right? And each segment can become a whole new tapeworm. At the tail end of each tapeworm, once it reaches sexual maturity and it begins reproducing its parts, the tail end are little segments that are full of eggs. Those little fuckers are designed to basically release those eggs in the fur of an animal. They'll slough off and they get stuck. The animal might eat them, but they're designed not so that the animal eats them, but so that they fall off in the bedding or where the animal, the dog or the cat, lays down. Then what kind of environment does it need? Well, it doesn't want nematodes that are in healthy soil, right? So something like dust, something like they cut down all the grass or they chopped it all down and burned it, right? So dirt means less competition, no nematodes, no predatory nematodes or diseases that the tapeworm can catch. And guess who also likes that? Ticks and fleas. And what convenient, wow. Guess what the tapeworm already thought of too? It used its calories and its nutrients from its host to make a case that's full of eggs that is edible to the larva of the flea. And in the process of eating the tapeworm egg cases, the flea then contracts the eggs, host the larva form of the tapeworm in the flea's gut. Can you imagine how small that is? Do you know how small that is? And then it can grow to maturity and then jump on a host, get eaten by the cat or the dog or whatever. Sometimes people, although they don't really make good hosts in people, so, you know, they're easy to expel. They can be expelled naturally, maybe even just some oregano tea or concoction or whatever, but they can take human hosts. So they'd rather see that. That's what they'd rather see. So what they think they're gonna be impressing me when they do that shit. The entitled arrogant shit. Stand outside and holler loud. My turf. I'm not impressed, dude. I've seen your control. Wow, I'm impressed by all the fleas and the tick and the dog shit. You're really powerful. You really have such an empire. Oh my God. So powerful. The tapeworms are your minions. Oh no. They're at my door. Dude, I don't care if I'm outnumbered. I don't care if I live to my last fucking day not seeing an ally in this. I got my proof. And I know I'm not an asshole. I'm not a bootlicker, but I'm not an asshole. Yesterday when I met the military, the National Guardsmen right there, right? I know. I got problems with their leadership. I know I do. I have a diametric opposition to the way they conduct themselves and the way that they think they're handling the problems, and I believe they're making them worse in this country. The whole military establishment, I was this close back in my youth in like high school joining the military because I got like decent scores on the assessment test thing, but I didn't get the scores that I wanted. So I was like, fuck that, no. I wanted to work on a nuclear sub or like with a reactor somehow, but I didn't. So at that point I was like, fuck. But yeah, I could have been an asshole. They see my door. They see my door. I had a machete right here, right where I'm standing. I had the knife I use for gardening, which is usual, you know, and shears, back pocket shears. I could have been an asshole, and you know, long-term short, because I know what they stand for. But it's not homie's fault, right? It's not those guys' fault. Some of them are probably younger than me. What do they know, right? You gotta give them a chance. Maybe they'll learn. I'm not gonna babysit them, you know? But I'm not a bootlicker. That doesn't mean just because I didn't attack them, I am subservient to them. So again, I might be outnumbered, but I know what I stand for. And it's worth standing for. And it's worth a lot more than they would like me to believe it's worth. Maybe because they just can't wrap their heads around it. Maybe because they're so morally, intellectually corrupted. They feel like the only fucking thing worth thinking about is themselves. I don't know. Alright, so that's about an hour. Gonna go ahead and cut the video now. Happy May Day.